What if Zimbabwe is about to make the biggest political change since independence? What if the military, the same institution that helped remove a president in 2017 and played a decisive role in shaping Zimbabwe's politics for decades, is about to be legally barred from choosing leaders, influencing politics, or removing a sitting president? Well, that's exactly what is now being proposed. But here's the twist. While supporters say this could strengthen democracy, critics are asking a very different question. If the military can no longer challenge political power, then who can? Let's get into it. A parliamentary committee in Zimbabwe has reportedly recommended a major constitutional amendment that could fundamentally change the relationship between the military and politics. The proposal seeks to amend Section 212 of Zimbabwe's constitution and would legally prohibit the armed forces from interfering in civilian governance. In simple terms, the military would no longer be allowed to influence political leadership, choose national leaders, or remove presidents from power. If passed, this would become one of the most significant constitutional changes Zimbabwe has seen since independence in 1980. And naturally, it is already generating intense debate. To understand why this is such a big story, we need to look at Zimbabwe's history. For decades, the military has been one of the most powerful institutions in the country. It has not only protected the state, but has also played a role in major political developments. The most obvious example came in November 2017. The military intervened and removed former President Robert Mugabe from power after nearly 4 decades as leader. The operation changed the course of Zimbabwean history and ultimately led to the rise of President Emmerson Mnangagwa. At the time, many Zimbabweans celebrated the intervention. Others viewed it as a military coup. Regardless of how people describe it, one thing is clear: the military played a decisive role. And that wasn't the first time. Back in 2008, several senior military officials openly stated they would not accept a leader who lacked Liberation War credentials. Those comments came during a tense election period involving opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai. The statements raised concerns about military involvement in political affairs and whether civilian authority was fully respected. Now, years later, Parliament appears to be trying to draw a clear constitutional line, a line that says politics belongs to politicians and governance belongs to civilians. Supporters of the amendment say this is exactly what Zimbabwe needs. They argue that democratic systems work best when the military remains neutral and professional. Their position is simple: soldiers should defend the country, politicians should govern it, and the two should remain separate. According to this view, the amendment would strengthen civilian control over state institutions and bring Zimbabwe closer to international democratic standards. But here's where the debate becomes complicated. Because while the amendment appears straightforward on paper, critics say reality may be very different. Many observers argue that Parliament itself is dominated by the ruling party. Others claim that key state institutions are increasingly aligned with the executive branch. And if those concerns are true, then a difficult question emerges. If Parliament cannot effectively challenge presidential power, and if the courts cannot effectively challenge presidential power, and if the military is legally prohibited from intervening, then who becomes the final check on executive authority? This is the contradiction at the center of the debate. The amendment seeks to reduce military influence in politics. Many people support that goal. But some analysts fear that removing one source of power without strengthening other democratic institutions could create new problems. In other words, limiting military influence is one thing, ensuring strong institutional accountability is another, and many Zimbabweans believe both must happen together. Now, let me ask you something. Can democracy truly thrive when the military stays out of politics? Most people would probably say yes. But here's another question. What happens if constitutional rules are ignored in the future? What institution would have the strength to enforce them? These are difficult questions. And they are exactly the kind of questions lawmakers will have to confront as this proposal moves through the legislative process. If the amendment becomes law, President Mnangagwa could become the first leader from the ruling party to complete his presidency without the possibility of military intervention hanging over his administration. That alone would mark a major shift in Zimbabwe's political culture. For decades, the relationship between politics and the military has been closely intertwined. This amendment aims to change that. Whether it succeeds remains to be seen. One thing is certain. This is not just another constitutional amendment. This is a debate about power. Who holds it? Who limits it? And who protects democracy when institutions are tested? The outcome could shape Zimbabwe's political future for years, perhaps even decades to come. Now I want to hear from you. Do you support the proposal to ban military involvement in politics? Do you believe the military should never have a role in choosing leaders or removing presidents? Or do you think Zimbabwe first needs stronger institutions before making such a major change? And here's the biggest question of all. If the military steps back completely, who should hold leaders accountable when power is abused? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Zimbabwe and Africa news. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.